Hey guys, Sean from Bantam Overland. Today we have another exciting new video featuring Alpine products in our Jeep JK. So what are we going to do, you ask? Well, we're going to give us some more sound and some bass. So this bundle includes the Alpine S2 A55V 5-channel amplifier, which is going to give you 60 watts by 4 and a 300 watt monoblock. Also included is either the SS SB10, or you can get its bigger brother, the SB12. Now that's a 10 or a 12-inch subwoofer in a nice hard plastic enclosure. Can't hurt it if it gets wet. Can't hurt it if you put stuff on top of it when you're going on vacation. Just a rugged subwoofer enclosure. Now also included is our Bantam Overland pre-terminated power kit. So you're going to get power wire, ground wire, a fuse block, as well as some flex loom and your speaker cable for your subwoofer. Also included is 6-channel RCAs, already pre-bundled with the remote wire already included. Now the big thing on this video is actually right here. So that is our exclusive Bantam Overland factory amp Jeep Bypass. Now this one is specifically for the JKs 2007 to 2018 and a half. One of the great things about the Bantam Overland Jeep JK factory amp bypass is you can actually amplify the speakers that are in your Jeep currently plugged into the factory harnesses with one of our other great bundles and not have to run any wires other than the bypass to the amplifier. Now, one thing I will tell you is that this bundle specifically requires a aftermarket head unit. So if you have a factory head unit, we will have some other options for you. So now that we've gone over a little bit about our Alpine bundle for the Jeep JK, let's go over some of the tools we're going to need to disassemble, install, and reassemble our Jeep. So first, we'll have a screw gun or a Phillips head screwdriver, some sort of socket or electric socket wrench, along with a 17 or a 14 millimeter socket. Now that would depend on your year. An extension, a T40 or T45, again, depending on which year you have. We're going to need a 2 millimeter Allen wrench, a smaller socket wrench, a 10 mil, an 8 mil, and a 7 mil socket to remove our radio, a socket extension, as well as a panel removal tool, and a pair of cutters to cut our wire ties, which are the very last thing. So now that we've gone over our bundle, everything that's included in our bundle, as well as tools, let's get to our Jeep and begin disassembly. So we're going to be removing the front passenger seat as well as the glove box. Then we'll move to the radio and then finally to our amplifier, and I'll show you how to do all that. So starting out first, I'm going to go ahead, just get the glove box removed. Super simple to do. Just drop it down, push it in on the sides and release. And just be careful if you have anything in there, it's gonna fall out. Now that I have my glove box out of the way, so 2007 to 2010 and a half, you'll have a seat belt bolt holding the belt actually to the seat. That's gonna be a T40 or a T45 depending on the year. So I'm gonna show you, we'll get that off and then we'll remove the seat bolts. So we'll grab, ours is a T40. Slide our seat up just a hair. Now it's right behind the lever to lift the seat back and forth. So just lift up on that flap and then remove the bolt, and then you can pop that out. Now just throw that bolt back in there so you don't lose it. So from there, we're going to go ahead and remove the 2 bolts in the front of the seat and then the 2 in the rear. So for that, we'll grab our 17 millimeter. Some cases it may be a 14, so just keep in mind that. So let's begin with the bolt closest to the transmission tunnel. and then closest to the outside. Then we'll go ahead and slide the seat up, get the two in the rear. So now the back seat, let's just do it the exact same way. Start with the bolt towards the transmission tunnel, then move to the outside. Now double check, okay, our seat's loose. So now we can slide the seat back, go ahead and get all the plugs unplugged and remove it from the vehicle. So now we have to unplug some connectors underneath our seat. Again, depending on your year, you may have one, you may have two, you may have three. So let's go ahead, slide our seat back, lift it up. We have one connector underneath ours. So we're just going to go ahead and press in to release it. So right here, and release. And then we can go ahead, fold our seat up a little bit so we can get it out of the Jeep. So now we have our seat out of the Jeep. Glove box is out. Next, we're going to move to the radio, and then I'll show you how to get at your factory amplifier, what we need to do there. So now it's time to disassemble our dash. Now in previous videos, we've already installed the Alpine ILX F509, as well as the Alpine specific Jeep speakers in this. So let's go ahead and get our dash taken apart. So first we'll go ahead and remove this top cover here. Just grabbing your panel removal tool and gently getting it under to pop. So we'll pop that off. Go ahead and unplug the compass sensor. Set that aside. Now we'll have to come down to the bottom, remove this cover. Now some of you may have a pocket there, but either or, you just pull that down and then lift it up. So once those two are out, it'll reveal 4 7mm screws in each corner. So let's go ahead and get those out. Set them somewhere safe. Go ahead and grab this one down here. And then this one. So now all 4 screws are out. And again, if you've seen our previous video on the installation of this radio, you'll just kind of pop this off gently and then just lay it down. So from there, we'll go ahead and remove the 4 7mm bolts holding the radio in. And slide the radio out of the dashboard. I like to just flip it right up because now I have access to my RCA cabling, and then we also will have access to our remote lead that is here. Now that our radio's out, we can move to underneath the steering wheel. That's where our factory amp sits and lives. So I'll show you how to get that all apart, get that factory amp out, and how to install our Bantam Overland Jeep JK amp bypass. So again, the factory amp sits underneath the steering column. So start by popping this piece directly underneath the steering column and removing it, as well as we're going to go ahead and remove this bottom panel as well. It just pops right off. So right in the middle, you'll see a 10mm here, and then 2 10mm holding this metal plate in. We need to remove all 3 of those. So we'll start here, out of the way. And then now we can see our factory amp here. It is held in by that single 10mm bolt. So let's get that out. So now we can pick the factory amp up and pull it forward. Now it has like metal clamps on the back to kind of keep it in its place. So you'll just gently wiggle it up and through like such. And then here is the more difficult part of unplugging it, which you're really not going to be able to get on camera. So you just kind of have to reach back there, feel for the clip to undo. And there's 2 plugs back there. And then you can actually physically slide the whole factory amp out. And these are the points where it sits and holds it straight underneath the steering column that you kind of have to give it a little tug. So now that that's out of the way, we'll have our 2 harnesses here. Drop them down here. Remove this remote, get this remote start out of the way. So here are our 2 plugs. I'm going to go ahead and grab our amp bypass, show you how to get that plugged in and get it run over to the passenger side. So let's go grab that bypass. So now I have our amp bypass. I grabbed our cutters and some wire ties to make sure everything's nice and tied up. So you'll see though that here our plugs line directly up, clip in, both of them. So now they're both clipped in. So we're gonna actually run this behind the center console. Now this Jeep does not have any carpets in it. He likes to take it off-road, go camping with it, so on and so forth. So he decided to go ahead and take the carpets out. If you have the factory carpets, you're gonna have to kind of, pull some of it out to get it behind the center console on both sides. But from here, we'll just kind of fish it behind. There. And then we can go ahead and wire tie our loose part of our amp bypass up, just to make sure we keep it out of the way of anything important like your gas pedal, your brake, anything like that. So we'll go ahead and put 2 of those on there. There we go. Cut off any excess. And then I'm going to come over to the passenger side, get that wire pulled through. I can see it right behind. If you have carpet, you may have to remove a little bit of the carpet here, but I can just go ahead and grab it and pull it through. So we give you about 7.5 feet of cabling. Again, all pre-terminated, ready to go directly into the amplifier. So now that that's there, I can go back on the other side. I can put our dash completely back together underneath the steering column, and then we can hop over on the passenger side, start getting our power wire run, start getting our RCAs and remote wire run, and then go from there. All right, now we can put our driver's side back together, exactly the opposite of disassembling it. So we're gonna start with our metal plate, like just making sure we get it positioned correctly and behind. It shouldn't fall out when you let it go. Go ahead and throw those 2 10mm bolts back in. So then we'll grab our lower panel, get that put back in, just like that. And last but not least, the cover panel directly below the steering column. Just get that on that hinge there and push up and in. Now, one thing I would suggest is keep that extra bolt and that factory amp in a safe place, just in case you ever happen, and we know it happens, but you just happen to get rid of your Jeep at some point. So now that driver's side is all completely back together, we can move to the radio. We're going to go ahead and get our RCAs and our remote wire dropped, get our radio back in, and then we can move to under the hood and I'll show you how to run the power wire. So now it's time to get our RCAs and our remote wire run. In our bundle, we pre-install the male bullet on the remote lead, and the RCAs are directional. So you'll notice on the RCAs, there's a small tag that says connect to source. Now that is the side we will plug into our aftermarket radio, and then the other side will be what drops down to our amplifier. So let's go ahead and get our RCAs run. Now it doesn't really matter if you want to come up through the glove box, down through the center and down. I prefer to come up through and then I'll fish back down. So I'll come up this way next to my vent, kind of get, you know, what I need up through, and then I'll go back and under. Get everything I need up and in. So first I'll find my remote lead, get that plugged in. So now our remote lead's connected. That will turn on and off the amplifier as you turn on and off your vehicle. So on the RCAs, there's a F for front, an R for rear, and an S for sub. Go ahead, grab your front, find your front RCAs. They'll look different if you have other head units. So we're gonna go ahead and find the one that has the clear marking, plug that into white. Find the one that has the red marking, plug that into red. Then we'll grab our middle set, which is the rear outputs. Find our rear RCA, again, same thing. Find our clearish RCA, plug that into white. Find our RCA with the red on it, plug that into red. And then finally, the last one, which is subwoofer. Find our subwoofer outputs. Again, clear into white, red into red. So now that all of our RCAs are in, we can go ahead and kind of pull that down. We want to make sure that we leave enough up here in case we made a mistake, something else happens, you want to add other things to your aftermarket head unit. So we'll go ahead and just gently slide that down to the side, making sure we have enough. Go ahead and grab your head unit and get it reinstalled. So now that we have it in, go ahead and get a couple of the bolts started. There we go. Grab our 7mm. And then move to our bottom. Now, depending on your radio, just double check, make sure everything's in and locked, it's not gonna wiggle. So we're good there. From there, go ahead, pop that dash back on. Get everything lined back up, make sure your radio looks good. Everything's there is good. Go ahead and grab the last remaining 7mm screws and get them started. And then on the bottom, so now we're good there. So now grab that pocket or that cover plate, making sure these are at the bottom. Just kind of get it in there. It will line up with the factory holes. Get that pushed in. Then we have our top. Make sure we plug in our compass. Get that. And that will kind of sit like that. And push it down. Now again, depending on what radio you have, whether it's a double din or a floating screen, they're all going to be a little bit different on how to get that all finished, but you get the point. We'll throw on our F509 floating screen prior to testing. So next we're going to go ahead, run our RCAs and our amp bypass wires to where they're going to live underneath the passenger seat. So let's get that done now. So now back over on the passenger side, let's get our RCAs and amp bypass wires run to live underneath the passenger seat. Again, this one does not have carpet, so it's going to be a little bit different than yours, but we're going to go ahead, grab our RCAs, just fish them down through behind the glove box. Trying to get everything in there. Now, depending on how you are and how you want to run them, you can run them down on this side by removing the kick panel here. You can run it down the center console. Doesn't really matter, completely up to you. Usually I like to run everything down the center console, especially the speaker wires and the RCA, so there is a little bit of separation between that and the power wire. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead, finish running my amp bypass wires. Now I'm going to give everything about an approximate of where I need, so I don't have too much wires everywhere here. I can hide and zip tie some of that stuff behind the center console and the glove box. So here I'll try to, and again, since I don't have carpet, I'm gonna have to go ahead and try to fish some stuff through. Grab my panel tool here and just kind of get this plastic up. Get that underneath there. There we go. So now that is behind. I have approximately what I need, and then I have some extra here. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with the RCAs. I think I'm actually going to see if I can get this behind here. Doesn't look like I am. So let me grab another tool, get this little mount off so I can feed my wires and keep them nice and hidden. All right, so I got the tools I needed, 8mm and a 10mm. In this case, normally they are both 10mm bolts holding this little bracket in. So let's go ahead and grab that 8 out. There we go. Switch over to the 10, grab that out. Okay, so now we can actually kind of remove that bracket altogether. That'll make it a good bit easier to hide our RCAs. And again, if you had carpet, you wouldn't really have to worry about this. So we'll kind of sneak it under this plastic in the center console. And then behind here and back underneath. So let's just double check, make sure we're going to have enough of the RCA. Yep, we should be good there. So we can go ahead, get that bracket reinstalled, put my 10mm on, get the 8mm started. Again, normally that's a 10mm. Get that tightened down. Grab our 8. Get that all tightened up. So before we tie any extra wires up, let's go ahead and finish getting them kind of run. So here we'll grab some of our wire ties and just get them loosely wrapped, just so we have them there. So get one here. And then we're just following the factory harness that goes underneath the seat here. So there we go. So now we have everything about where it's going to sit. If we need any extra, we can go ahead and just pull that through relatively easily. So now our wire ties are holding in our RCAs and our amp bypass harness wires. We have them pretty much where we need them. We can pull and get a little extra if we need that. We're going to remove our kick panel here. Super simple, just pull up and slide out. And then we'll go ahead and I'm going to show you how to get your power wire from your battery through your firewall and into the actual vehicle itself. So let's go ahead and get this off. Panel tool, just kind of gently pry up. Then you're probably just going to have to wiggle it a little bit, make sure it releases. This side, same thing, just gently pry up. And then pull that one out. These things can be a little bit temperamental. There we go. So now we'll just go ahead, slide this out from under, and then just wiggle the front side out and remove. Now with that kick panel out, we'll easily be able to run our power wire down along the side here and then right to our amp location. So now let's go get the hood open and we'll start with the power wire run. So now we're finally under the hood. We're going to go ahead and get our pre-terminated power wire run through the firewall. Now I like running on the passenger side of the vehicle. There's a nice little spot right behind this foam. So you just got to get off these two pops here. Pop that side, and then there's one just below it. So we're talking right here. So we'll get this relay off here. There we go. So now if you just grab your panel popper and just kind of pull towards yourself, you'll notice it's basically like a piece of tape in the back there. Grab yourself a screwdriver or a small knife. You're going to poke a hole in that, just like that. Kind of make sure it goes all the way through. And then grab the correct end. So you're going to grab the longer end of your power cable. So we'll set this up here. And then longer end in that hole. And you're going to fish it down through. Now this, depending on how much stuff you have in here, you may need to open up that hole a little more. So just take your time, you'll get it. There we go. Once it breaks through and gets down in there, you'll be able just to feed it all the way down in. If you have somebody helping you, they can pull it on the other side to make sure you get the correct length. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hop on the other side, pull it through. You'll be able to see that move. Now once I get to a spot where I think I'm good, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of eyeball where and how I'm going to mount my fuse holder. So I need about another 8 inches to go in. So kind of get that in there. Take a look. So another inch or 2 in there. There we go. So now that's in. If you want to silicone it, you can silicone it, put any kind of sealant over top that hole, and then go ahead and get your 2 pins back on there. So now we have that run. Let's go ahead and wire tie on our fuse holder. One on that side, one here on this side. There we go. Just making sure, yep, we can get there, perfect. Go ahead and tighten that down, tighten that one down. Cut off any of the excess. And then we're just gonna get that sharp stuff out of the way. So now we're good. So we're not gonna go ahead and put power to this quite yet. Now, probably won't show this on video, but you're just gonna go to your positive side. It could be a 10 millimeter, it could be a 12 millimeter. Depends on your battery and how much stuff you have hooked up to your battery, but just remember, it'll go there. You're gonna see a spark once your amplifier is all hooked up. That is the caps charging inside the amplifier. Not to worry, just go slow, everything will be fine. So now power wire is into the Jeep. Let's go ahead, get it wire tied along that factory wiring cable on the passenger side and get it to where our amp's gonna live. So now let's go ahead and wire tie our power cable into the vehicle. So starting up here, just get your wire tie nice and secure the whole way down, and we'll go. And our amp's gonna live right here. So, and I know that our power and our speaker connections are gonna be towards the center console. That's so we can do any adjustments that we need to do on the crossovers or the gains relatively easily without removing the seat. So let's go ahead, grab some of our wire ties, get that all wire tied up. There we go, got the first one started. Let's get it nice and hidden behind, then tighten it down. And then carry on, move through the harness. Now again, if you have factory carpet, not as big of a deal to hide the wire. You'll be able just to do a couple of wire ties along this to keep it out of the way. I'm gonna go ahead and go under here, pull that through. Get another wire tie right here. Pull that tight. And then we'll do one more here until we're all done and ready to do some cleanup. So we'll cut off all of our extra. And up here. There we go. We'll make sure we always roll around that sharp side so we don't cut our hands or arms. So next thing I want to do is go ahead and get our ground wire grounded. So right here on the transmission tunnel is a 10mm nut with a factory ground. We're going to go right there. So go ahead and just remove that 10mm nut. And then slide that ground down first, and then put that factory ground back on top, just like that, and put that nut back on and retighten. There we go. So now we have our power wire, our ground wire, our RCAs and remote, and our speaker wires coming from our amp bypass all underneath the seat. So now next we're going to go ahead, grab the amplifier, get that prepped, and I'm going to show you where everything goes, all the speaker wires, the RCAs, the remote lead, and the power and ground. So let's go ahead, grab the amplifier, and get that installed. Now I have my Alpine 5-channel amp inside the Jeep. We're going to go ahead and start getting some of the wires hooked up. So first, I'm going to just give you a quick explanation of how the Alpine amp is laid out. So it is laid out in a positive on top, negative on the bottom. So for example, channel 1, which is left front, positive is on top, negative is on the bottom. Same moving all the way down. So our right front speakers is next. Then our left rear speakers, positive and negative, and then our right rear speakers here, positive and negative, and then we have our subwoofer channel, which I'll show you that. Next is our battery power, so that's our red cable, our remote, which is the blue with the RCAs, and finally our ground, which is our black cable. So let's go ahead and begin with hooking up our speaker wires from our amp bypass. So it is a bit easier to start with the bottom. So we're going to find our white with a black stripe. Go ahead and get it all the way in. Now the amplifier will come with its own Allen wrench to do this. Again, it's a 2mm Allen to tighten these bolts. So go ahead and you can start tightening them, get them all the way tightened down. Now I suggest you always give a little, just a gentle pull once you have it tightened. So just to make sure it's not going to come out. So that one's good. So now we'll go ahead and grab our solid white wire and stick that right on top of the white with black. And then get that one tightened in. Give a little pull on that. So those are both good. So then our right, we're going to have gray and gray with black. So let's kind of get these out here. So again, starting at the bottom with the gray and black wire. Get that in, and get that one all tightened up. So that's good. Now our solid gray wire on top. Okay, next we're going to go with green and green with black, starting with green and black on the bottom for our left rear or channel 3, and then our solid green on top, and then right rear is going to be purple with a black stripe and solid purple. So we'll grab our purple with a black stripe, start with that one, and last but not least on this is purple for our right rear positive. So let's just give a tug on all of them, make sure nothing's going to come out. So we're good there. Next thing we want to do is go ahead and grab our red and black subwoofer wire. Get that undone. Go ahead and kind of get it out there. Now depending on how you want to run it, I'm going to go ahead and slide it in here with my power cable. Use those pre-existing wire ties to my advantage. So there we go, and I'll leave a little extra just in case. So as far as the sub channel, it'll be the same as the interior speakers. We're gonna have black and red. Black is gonna be my ground, red is gonna be my positive. So ground will go on the bottom. Get that all the way in. Get that tightened down. Give it a little tug, we're good there. And red will go on top. So give it a little tug, there we go. So that is it for our speaker wires. So next, let's go ahead and hook up our black ground wire. That will go all the way, the farthest away from the speaker wire. Go ahead and stick that in, and then use your provided Allen wrench or your 2mm Allen that you have. Get that tightened down. Next, we want to go ahead and grab our power wire. That will go to the bigger one nearest the speaker connectors. Go ahead and get that set in. So now give a little tug on both of those. Those are good. So next, we have our remote lead, which is tied in with our RCAs. So those will kind of get how we want them. And we'll get our remote lead into the middle where it says REM. Go ahead and tighten that down. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip the amp over, get our RCAs plugged in, show you all that. So again, the RCAs are already pre-labeled with an F for front, R for rear, S for sub. You'll notice here, input, channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, and our 2 subwoofer channels here at the end. So let's go ahead and find the one that says F. So there we go. Now there's 2 different colors, one a clear, one a red. Just like at the head unit, go ahead and plug the red into red and the clear into white for front. Find our rear channels here. Let's do the exact same thing. Got our red here, plug that into red, plug the clear into white, and then finally confirm that we have an S for our subwoofer, clear to white, red to red. Some of the settings on the amplifier, we have our turn on type. It will already come preset to remote since we're running a remote wire down. Our input channels we want on 3, 4, so they're all independent. Our subwoofer channel we want to sub because we're running the subwoofer its own RCA. So then up top here we have channel 1 and 2. So we have our gain and our filter. Then we have channel 3 and 4, which is rear. We have our gain and our filter. And then on the bottom here, we have our gain, our low pass filter, and our bass EQ. So normally I would tell somebody to start at just under halfway on the gain on everything, including subwoofer. So the high pass filter for these Alpine speakers, I'm going to go ahead and set at about 100 or so. Same thing for the rear because they're the same speakers front and rear. And as far as the subwoofer, going to go ahead and set my low pass filter at about 80, and I'm going to leave my bass EQ basically alone. I'm not a big fan of bass boost, so I'm going to leave it alone, but you can adjust it to your liking. So let me just go ahead and grab a flathead screwdriver, get those all adjusted, and then we can move on. So let's just go ahead and make sure that's to remote, 3, 4, sub is to subwoofer. Now let me just check the gain, make sure, okay, so that is already about halfway. Let's just bump it down just a hair. Turn our high pass filter to right around somewhere between 80 and 120. Our rear, just double check. Okay, that is at halfway. Let's go ahead and adjust our high pass filter for our rear speakers to somewhere in that general area, somewhere between 80 and 100. That's just not allowing those lower frequencies to play through these speakers, which is what we want our subwoofer to do. So as far as our subwoofer gain down at the bottom, again, leave it about halfway. Let's go ahead and adjust our low pass frequency to about 80 or so. Now, depending on what type of music you listen to, you may want to adjust that later, but again, that's up to you and your musical preferences. And again, personally for me, bass EQ, I'm not going to touch. It's kind of like a boost, give you a little bit of extra oomph on the bottom end. So now that everything is good to go, we're going to go ahead and flip our amplifier over. Now in this case, we're going to go ahead and just put the industrial Velcro on just to get it locked down. This particular customer did not want anything screwed in to the metal. So we're going to go ahead and get these on. This will also allow us to move it if necessary without creating extra holes in the vehicle. So I'm actually not going to pop these off quite yet. We're going to go ahead and see where our amplifier is going to sit the best, not be in the way, kind of start getting some of our stuff cleaned up and pulled back through. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get it sat here for now, get some of our wires cleaned up and out of the way, get everything kind of wire tied off to its side. Once we get everything cleaned up here, we'll go ahead and get our subwoofer cable run to behind the rear seat. So let's go ahead and kind of just get things cleaned up. Again, if you have carpet, it's a little easier. You can hide stuff a little bit better. This, I don't have that, unfortunately. So let's get it cleaned up and looking pretty. So now I've got all my wiring, for the most part, all cleaned up, including my extra wire that we ran from the factory amplifier with the bypass, as well as the RCAs. Everything's kind of hidden. Again, Jeeps are the most customized vehicles in the world. Yours may be a little bit different, but just do your best, get it hidden away underneath carpet, behind panels and plastic. It'll be perfect. So once we have all finished that, we'll do a little housekeeping, get some of our stuff out of the way, and then I'm going to go ahead and run my subwoofer wire all the way back to behind the rear seat. So now running our subwoofer speaker wire, easiest thing, right down the passenger side kick panels all the way up and under. Now whether you chose the 10-inch or the 12-inch version of the subwoofer, it's still going to be the exact same. Also, the subwoofer comes with some mounts. You can choose to screw it down, leave it sit in one spot, completely up to you. If you do choose to screw it down, please be extremely careful. Make sure you look underneath the Jeep where you're screwing, just to be extra careful. So with that being said, let's get this subwoofer wire run. I'm going to go back to the front door, get a wire tie on there, get it underneath, and then finish running it. So we'll get a wire tie here. And one more here at the edge. Cut all the excess off. There we go. So now from here, you're going to have, if you have the carpet, you're going to have a split just underneath the seat. You can actually go up under. You can peel away the side here and go down through the side. In this case, I'm actually going to fold the seat down, go up under, and pop it to where our 10-inch Alpine sits in the back. So let's fold our seat down. Kind of give us that room. Then we're just going to go up under the carpet. I'm going to fish it through to the middle set of seat belts. All right, just like that. Get everything else back down. So no matter whether you have the SB10 or the SB12, the speaker wire input will look exactly the same. You can notice, and it's very, very small, but we have a negative sign on this side. That's going to be our black wire from our speaker wire. Now the other side has a plus sign, so that will be the red wire coming off of our amp. So let's go ahead, get both of these plugged in. So you just push down the tab, stick the wire in, and let it go. Give it a little tug, make sure it doesn't come out. Same thing with the other side, push down. Stick in, let go. Now they're both nice and tight. Now you can put your subwoofer however you so choose, wherever you would like. For me, I'm just gonna stick it right in the back. It's not going to go anywhere, it doesn't really slide, so I don't really find any reason to screw it down at this point. Also, this customer would like to be able to remove it at will, so that way he can just unplug it, take it out of the car, load it up with camping gear, and then put it back in when he's done. So subwoofer is all done. So our next step, we're going to actually go ahead and mount the amplifier, and then we're going to put the truck back together. So put the passenger seat in, put the glove box in, and then we'll go up under the hood to hook up power and give it a test. So let's go ahead and finish up with our amplifier, first by mounting it down, then by getting the little trim panels on the side here. So first things first, flip it over. Now again, if you're screwing it down, be careful. There are things directly underneath this seat, brake lines, so on and so forth. So just be cautious on that. Let's just get her in a good spot here. There we go. So now our amp's in there. Nice thing is our crossovers and all our settings are facing out, so we will be able to get them without taking the seat out. So lastly, inside the box, there are these little trim covers. So the trim panels will go on the sides, and you will use the included screws to mount them down. So go ahead and grab that, and then get our side panels screwed in. Perfect. Amps mounted, trim panels are on. We're good to go there. From there, we can go ahead and move and get this kick panel back on. So getting the kick panel in, we'll actually take that pin out. So we're just gonna gently slide it underneath here, and it'll kind of just wiggle into place. And then up here, we'll have to line up the two pops, the two pins. There we go, that's in. Now, the bigger Christmas tree pin goes here, and the smaller one goes towards the rear. So now those are both in. So now we can actually move to grabbing our front passenger seat, getting it placed in the vehicle, and getting it all plugged back in. So let's grab that seat. So let's get our seat leaned back till we can get it plugged in. There we go. Then we can drop our seat down, lining up the pins. Okay, we got both our pins lined up. Go ahead and start those bolts. So then go ahead, slide that seat forward. Go ahead and get those rear bolts in. So let's get these tightened down. The other side. Now moving back to the front. Let's get these tightened down. So now we have to put our seat belt back in. Now that'll go right back into that same spot. So right here, remove that bolt we put back in there for safekeeping. Get your belt back in, and then we'll go ahead and tighten it up with that T40. So now last thing to really do on the interior, get that glove box back in. So let's do that. So line her up, push in, and close. Make sure it works. So now we're completely done with the interior. Now it's just time to kind of clean up any of your mess, then move to the hood and go ahead and connect your battery. So let's go ahead and do that now. So very last thing we need to do is hook up the power wire to the battery. Now this can be the part where people are very, very scared to do. It's not that big of a deal, won't hurt you. Just have to do it safely. So the positive battery terminal, you're gonna have a 10, a 12, a 14. You could have a number of different sizes of battery clamp depending on what your battery is, how you have it set up, what accessories you have on there. This one happens to be a 10 millimeter. So I'm gonna go ahead and back this bolt off and just slide the new power wire on. Now you'll probably see a bit of a spark, little spark there, no big deal. Go ahead and get that nut back on and tighten it down. So if you want to clean or you have any extra wire, you can go ahead and wire tie it now. If not, close your hood. Next step, testing the radio, the speakers, the amp, and the subs. Make sure everything works flawlessly, and then going through a little tuning. So let's hop in the Jeep and get to listening. We need to do a little testing, so let's get the radio on. Now your radio may be different. Ours is a Alpine F509, so I'll wait for my Apple CarPlay to connect. So now my Apple CarPlay is up. Let's go over to Spotify, hit something, play. So let's give it some volume here. Okay, so now in my case, I'm going to go into fader and balance, test everything there. Front left. Rear left. Rear right. And front right. So now I know my rear speakers are on and my subwoofer is on. So let's go into our crossover settings. Again, yours may be a little different. Just check those. So start at front high pass at 100 Hertz, that's perfect. Front low pass at 20K, good. Rear 125, that's fine. And rear again is at 20K, and our subwoofer is at 80. So we're good there. So let's get back out, give it a little volume, see what she sounds like. These Alpine speakers absolutely come alive when you add a real power amp to them. So now they're getting 60 watts per channel, where before they were getting 15 or so from the factory amplifier. They sound absolutely fantastic. These Alpine speakers paired with our 5-channel Alpine amplifier, Alpine head unit, Alpine subwoofer, and our Bantam Overland Jeep JK Amplifier Bypass sounds absolutely wonderful, clean, crisp, concise, nice bass notes, no weird buzzing or anything like that out of what we had with the factory speakers. I think this customer is going to be extremely happy with how his Jeep turned out. Now, if you have any questions on any of our Alpine head unit, speaker, amplifier, or subwoofer bundles that are all completely plug and play, please visit us at bantamoverland.com. And as always, guys, have a blast out there.